And with part 17 of my recovery effort, they said I was the one chosen for the Glen Judge, but I didn't do the things I was told to do before I was here at the Clock Radio Dose. And so yesterday, when I made it past the Fall Le J section in Heaven on Earth, I was told not to live life royally and heavily, but I had to because it's my nature. And so when I mentioned being torn between the splinters, if you will, or something along those lines, it means that I was placed in a position that's beneath me, beneath my claringes, far enough to be hemorrhagiate in a Mosamboko afterlife feature of President Che and Lakiete in a better and new way of all the Ate Kogichers, if you will. So almost everything that I see is stage unique of features, if you know what I'm saying. And so that's the reason why, because my life was made different by someone else's action and activity in space-time and for real in every which way. So if you look down the timeline of EO Majesty from the beginning to the end to the next 34th and all the other ones, Ellie Lives 8 was told not to do the things he should do in a way complicated, complex, and roundabout well-raised phrase, which ended in a Raspudio Coco murder charge on the FBI doc, Dis Pokese Raje, mixed with Chionko Plaque Franje, and absolutely Ablieke murder on Suke Bamose Swatch. So it's the most possible worst that a person can go through if they was in the earth, and also a deity in heaven, at birth, which is rare, but it's true. But the flesh was not different than anyone else's flesh. The flesh was so contagious that it was just exactly like the average human being flesh was. There was no power-ups. There was no enhancements. It was the real life flesh like everybody else got. And so that's the only thing. I didn't get any help from angels, from God, beast, nor raven prospect the Reggie. So I got no help from it, but I asked for help and nobody else cared. But I live life royally and heavily, but not for real. It's a game to say I live life royally and heavily. It's to show people in the new world, if you will, that I was somebody who would fight against all odds, even if I could not fight in any which spots or clagadividigan and audio kadaj. Easy peak and very readable. Insane, because it's heavens. But if I had to live life royally and heavily, I wouldn't tell the world anything. But I didn't. And that's just the way it was. So being torn between scadenters is no game. It's no game or laughing matter. It's no game or laughing matter. To be torn between squinters is unrelated to the people that's there in your life circle in every which way, even if they were related to it in some kind of way. So it means your royalty in earth and heaven has been splintered. Like somebody cut it up in an unnatural fashion with the taper still showing and all the wedges. So if somebody does that, then you're not able to do the things that your nature calls for, which is just be you. Just said it, because you different, but you can't explain it because it's coming from something like Cody say, Bobo. Meaning you being attacked and tormented in a way the average person would not. So they wouldn't be able to tell you anything except go to hell, go to heaven. And that's all they can tell you. But if you're going through this, you will know that a man born blessed and righteous and holy and chakrado and all deals of mayortyship, which means anything that's associated with righteousness, anything associated with holiness and heavenly royalty, all combined together is one man, and that's Dexter Jerome Ray Jr. only, with no carriage. And that's just the way it was. So I didn't say I was here. I didn't say I was there. But I asked for help and forgiveness from those who were not able to see the things that I was at the time when I was there before my great ascension. And so it was not promised and it was not automated when it should have been. And so that changes the nature of a lot of things in the new world, the coming future and everything. Because if somebody earns a life and they do things right in the flesh in a Wajo Accord, then there's no way to take it back. Because anything that happens in the planet Earth after Kiko Panvetsenata in heaven italics for Rome air worship and all my Jerisos mean time is rigid like a stone, but not for real. So it means that time is so permanent that you can't undo something that happens while you in the earth in the flesh. And so I lived life royally and heavily, but I couldn't. So nobody else was there the whole time. But I was torn between squinters in a way unnaturally for a man to be, or an angel to be, or a God, if you will. So it wasn't something that was natural occurring, but it was did by somebody over time in every which way, or manner of serpent. So they did things on purpose in a way nobody else could see it but me. And so it was worse for my pain and grief, because it makes it seem as if it was a part of a success unitio story, when it was not a success unitio story. Those who did this intended for me never to be anything, even though I deserved it in every which way. And so for that, I wasn't given anything needed to succeed or to be anywhere else or any which place. And so I was taken from glory and grace in a way unnatural, or coming to the system or the strata system in heaven, earth, and anywhere else. So I was unnaturally removed from something that was mine in a way that was coming for my nature, but not to mankind. So it's not coming for man to see a man with that kind of royalty, but that's what I am and was the whole time. So it's uncommon for me to have been removed, but I was, and taken from it. Now everything else was relative, but I will say that if I lived life royally and heavily, then I had enemies. And those enemies were not like your average enemies. These enemies were from the lake of Pizate, which is different from the lake of fire, and also different from Satan. These enemies from the lake of Picante is some place that was in heaven before 1994. And that place fell to the earth with the lake of fire and all that mixed together. But they were hiding themselves until they couldn't no more. But if I had enemies, they were not like those, that's mentioned in the Bible, even though they were like those in the Bible. But they're not in the same playing field, but they act as if they were. So they ain't really care about being anything more. But that's not something I take interest in, speaking about those who try to take my whole soul when I was innocent, like Geeko Band. And that's it. Geeko Span, YGNO. And so I lived like heavily and royally, but I didn't do anything different. And I didn't leave when they told me to, in a good way, for them, me, and the country. Because if I would have, then they would have said I was something less than anything else I could have been. And so I practiced endurance, perseverance, and doing things according to the righteous talk therapy I read. And there's not one thing I said was sorcery, even after I learned that it was possible to do sorcery. So everything that I had did after that point, it wasn't meant to be somewhere that you thought it was. And so that's why I was. And I did nothing but righteous talk from the Bible energy. And everything that I did against anything that was attacking the righteous innocent. Yeah, the righteous innocent is somebody who is not eligible for the content, because they just not reasonably someone that you would harm. That's the main thing. That's the defense. Yeah, the defense is you just not. Yeah, so the righteous innocent wasn't eligible for whatever it was, because they're not doing something that you think they was. But if people fell from the sky before 1994, they were not a part of my sagas or my story. And that's something that's hidden Bowoko to know, an obvious reason until you mention it. Because if people was in heaven in 1994, then they were there part of their own sagas. And when I came to earth, that was wrapping up the Sinkies, if you know what I'm saying. So if it made sense according to what the earth would become in American culture, then it would begin something like that. Because if you take truth into the Wojewoko section to say that mankind and angels were here, and that's the reason for a man-made crime syndicate, then you will have to understand that you're saying something that never was here before in the sight of the commonplace populace. And if it wasn't here in their sight, then it's not something that's easy to speak about in the public. And so if you can't speak about it in the public, then you can't say it clearly or outwardly, but you must. So if they're not saying these things to the people, but they are saying the things to us individually, then it means you permanently are being targeted in a way unconstitutionally, unnaturally, and nobody cares about what happens to you in a whole unanimously that guard your system, in a whole universe, creation, life, animal, soil, and kanj. Sometimes, which sometimes is too much for a human, because human beings were made with the will of Shikadajo. We rely on the things we see because that's by nature. If I'm converted to a full human being, but before that point I was so powerful that God helped me live in heaven before, then that means that this was a pre-Antako event, accidentally, but also was intentionally by somebody who had my worst interests forever, no matter what. And so some people call it the devil. I don't. I call it the darkness, because if I call it the devil, it's a person that used to be somebody in heaven. So the darkness is something that's against me for being what I am, which is something that's not bad, wrong, evil, or guilt white sergeant. And so that's just how it is. And so the new world functions a little differently than the old one. Because if I'm anywhere in charge of the things I saw, then I praise God on Finaj. But I am not the one here for the Ghana Yogoko system. But if God was here and somebody told me not to be, then I praise God on Esraniadiojo's. Because I am not a person eligible for the Kati of Mensa Rajays, and I would never do something to harm another person, and I never did, in spite of the things that was happening to me in plain sight. And so only thing I did was raise a pen and a piece of paper, and I started writing with the rhymes out of nowhere, without any type of references or help from anybody that they said was related, when I said they wasn't from the beginnings. And that's all it was. But yeah, Dexter Jerome Ray Jr.'s story is, yeah, some people call it blessed at best, for the simple fact it must be. If I was here and this was happening, it's the worst thing that could happen to a man. But if you tell somebody that, they would not care, because it's cliche to say it. So it's cliche, but this is not a regular situation. This crime was there for edge. It's a crime syndicate, boss, Captain Grojo, involving a lot of people that was prominent name and influences in the sight of the public in America. But I myself never prioritized them. And if I didn't prioritize them, I didn't really care much about what they were into or what they was doing. But when it attacked me, I was put into a position of having to speak and express the way I felt about the CITO answers. So I myself didn't really care about the influences and those who were involved with my crucifixion, if you will. But I was forced into a position of having to pay attention against my will until I caught on to something that I knew better of and didn't have any interest in. And so they did me this bad year after year after year, till I got to the point where that's all I can see in plain sight. So I don't know if they cared about the conceptuary of the United States democratic system, but if they did, they'll know that they are destroying the economy with what's happening to Dexter Jerome Ray Jr. instead, which is something that's archaic to say. Yeah, that one man would be the one that this is happening to, but it's weird. So if they saying that on TV and I'm here, then that's why. But it's their own action and not anything that I said, yeah, that I was got. And God bless the Rancho soil. Because America is the place I was born and raised, and I never had a problem to these days when they found out I could rap freely and freestyle without any help or any drains. And I did nothing else, because if I was torn between squinters, then I'm supposed to do my interests. But if I could rap, then that's the reason why I was supposed to do it. But if I'm the one here and nobody else cared about anything else I was saying, then that's the reason why I was going through these things. So if I'm torn between squinters and I can't rap, then I'm dead. Yeah. But if I could rap before, and then I said, but if I can't make money because I'm torn between the gams, then that's why I would have to do the same thing that a civilian did, which is why I can lead a new economy, if you will, but not in the earth, and not America, and not any nation of Flair-Joe. And that's all I can say. Okay. Right here, JoJo, so kill your away. And Holy Spirit, can I read J's? Yeah, my voice is no rather, JoJo. It's the things I'm saying. But it changes, y'all. Bless God, go ahead, time, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Y'all Joe's from heaven to talents to English. Rajo Dodo go back over there side up. That's how I speak and rap. Yeah, sometimes when I feel it or will it. But that's the way you gotta be in real life, like Cotillion. Yeah. And so that's the end of my life in the radio, but not the end of my story, if you will, forever. Ellie Lives 8 shadows. And I am Ellie Lives. Yeah, high visibility jacket on and such, right though. Nice rides and smooth car when needed. Not because of attention, though, but just because I can say it and I'm talented enough to speak it. Radio though, off.